me, connecting to my instrument, being connected to myself. I have to be connected here. So I have to be in touch with myself. Myself meaning the instrument becomes you know, so you're in touch with this. I started playing the instrument, and it felt like it had a character of its own. The sound directed me where to go, and it felt like I was better because I was playing the instrument.
So the willingness to take risks is a very important stage in moving beyond just competence in following the rules and doing what everyone else does, to getting into the position where you learn what you're supposed to be responding to.
What distinguishes the kind of risks we're interested in from just bravado is whether the risks are taken in the interest of what somebody is committed to, what they've defined themselves in terms of, and what makes the meaningful differences in their lives. That kind of risk is a special kind of risk that is a necessary part of becoming a master in anything.
Heidegger calls this fairly dramatically running forward into death. And what that means, I think, is being willing to embrace a particular kind of possibility and let other possibilities die off. Risks of looking ridiculous, for example, risks of genuinely losing things you might regret losing later on.
Taking risks is important. It's an essential part of jazz. Improvisation is supposed to be the element of freedom, venturing into space that hasn't been seen before. You're supposed to always be trying something new, instead of playing patterns or just playing something that everybody's heard before. Sometimes I'm surprised myself. Sometimes I'll listen back to something I played and be like, oh man, did I play that? In a good way, you know? And then other times I'm like, oh man, did I play that?
When kids are coming up and they're learning to play in schools and they're in that sort of formal environment where they're in front of a teacher playing music, you know, they're forced to bring something to the table and they're told to get better and better. You know, you're not playing well, you need to play better today. What's lacking is like listening to everyone else in the room and sort of understanding that I don't have to rely on just everything that I know. If I listen to the other guys at the moment, I can come up with new things on the spot. That's when I'm really like in tune with it, or in touch, or channeling, if you want to say.
So the authentic person is the one who will confront this concrete situation, who will do what needs to be done, who's responsive to it, attuned to it, and who therefore has a certain kind of spontaneity that you don't get if you insist on falling back on rules, principles, procedures, generic formulas for how to act and what to think and what to say and how to be.
When I was only playing classical, I would just read what was on the page, learn it, and memorize it and play it. With jazz, when I'm in that zone, I'm not even thinking about what am I playing or what note. It's just what's going on at the moment with the other musicians, and this is what I'm bringing out. It's really hard to describe.
It's a very common quality for people that are learning how to play jazz to be very introverted with their music. And when you're practicing every day, it's something that you do by yourself. You open up your practice book and you read your notes or whatever, or you practice your rudiments on the drums, stuff like that, and these are things that you're doing all by yourself. And so when you get to a performance setting where you're around other musicians, there's a huge tendency to sort of get in your head and to just go back to what you're used to doing every day, 6 hours a day, is just playing by yourself and not really listening for the ways to react to what's going on outwards. And as you grow older and as you get more experience and as you learn to master your instrument, master music making, you learn to include the other musicians, and then even further include the audience, and also include the nuances and the different sort of aspects that are around the room, and bring that in and use that to help you create the music that you're creating for, because you're always creating music for somebody.
In these kinds of situations, they experience themselves as having the action drawn out of them. And you'll find it in sporting events. I'm sure that you'll find it in music. You'll find it in any domain where operating in the domain requires a sophisticated kind of skill and requires a kind of openness to what's going on at the moment. And that goes also for the domain of living a life.
An athlete, I think, is a good illustration of this. Athletes are rule-bound, rule-governed. You can't play the game unless you're following the rules. But the great athletes see a way to express something about the game within the confines of the rules, but in a way that other people hadn't thought to do or aren't able to do. Heidegger thought that our highest dignity as human beings, what really set us apart from everything else in the universe, was our capacity to disclose whole new worlds, to open up whole new possibilities. Heidegger coined this idea of disclosure to capture something that we're not used to thinking about, and that is the way that things only show themselves when all the conditions of skill and all the relationships between them are possible. And then the experience there is of something opening up, a space of possibilities opening up, a way of inhabiting the world opening up. And it's not like it was there all along. It's not like the world of jazz music was somewhere there in the Middle Ages, say, or in the Greek world, just waiting to be discovered. It was something that had to have a space provided for it.
Dice que no quiero verla, porque voy a tener que matarla y no tengo valor para perderla.
These worlds, these coherent, whole, organized ways of being humans in activities, at objects in the world, all of that requires something to open it up.
A ver, a mi novia vengo para decirle que la quiero, porque esta noche yo tengo mi corazón prisionero y sus ojitos relucen como dos candelas. Su pelo es tan fino como el terciopelo. Mi novia se llama de nombre Manuela y en cambio la tuya se llama Consuelo. Ay, gracias. ¿Dónde estoy?
And it's true that it changes us, so we have to become the kind of people who are satisfied with the sort of commodities that are delivered to us. You could imagine people who really are connoisseurs of jazz music, who really understand that one of the great things about jazz music is the way the musicians are responding to the performance hall and the audience and the particular musicians that are there and the weather and whatever accidents are happening. The jazz musicians are incorporating it into their performance.
Responding to the other musicians is one of the most important things.
In playing together, you'll hear that in the music, where the piano will play something, the bass will react, and the drums are playing, and then the trumpet will jump in. You're interacting with everything. Everything is a part of what you're trying to get to. Anything can change what's happening. If the cell phone goes off, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, the cat might make fun of it on the piano, or even on the trumpet, or whatever it is, and it all becomes a part of the performance.
And if you, as a listener, are a skillful listener and have the bodily dispositions to pick up on that, you'd never be satisfied by listening to a recorded jazz performance on CD, because that's not the performance that would be optimal for your bedroom or living room. But technology makes us also the sort of flexible people who are satisfied with a sort of cheap imitation of all the goods that deeply skillful practices deliver.
somos artistas demostradores, somos artistas de sello propio, y somos artistas de sentimiento, y somos artistas de creadores de nuestra trascendencia.
I've heard that flamenco artists have a deep aversion to even being recorded for this very reason, that they have just an intuitive sense that recording them and making their performance reproducible in all sorts of foreign contexts is distorting what flamenco is really all about.
Ayer me preguntaste una cosa, me dijiste, ¿qué es el compás? Y yo te dije que el compás era una medida, y no estoy de acuerdo con eso. El compás es una forma de andar, una forma de hablar, una forma de besar, una forma de abrazar. Eso es el compás.
With jazz, you know, you're able to interact with the stars of jazz. Somebody like Wynton Marsalis or Branford or Ray Brown, which was my teacher. You could just go up to him and say, hey, it's a community. And that community is what really drew me to jazz music. There's those times where you'll get too inside and those jazz masters will be sitting in the audience. Those jazz legends will come out and like, hey man, connect.